Have you ever wondered what awaits us in the afterlife? What choices will shape our journey beyond this life? I want you to pay close attention because what I'm about to reveal about my near-death experience will shake your understanding of how choices shape our souls for 2025. Years ago, as a skeptical scientist, I faced death and discovered chilling messages about our future. Insights I'm compelled to share now. I remember that day as clearly as if it happened yesterday. Standing in my laboratory at the university, surrounded by the familiar hum of equipment and the sterile scent of disinfectant, I was doing what I'd always done, searching for concrete, measurable truth. For 15 years, I'd built my reputation as Dr. Alex Mercer, the professor who demanded empirical evidence for everything. My colleagues used to joke that I wouldn't believe in gravity without running the calculations myself that morning. I dismissed yet another student's paper on consciousness existing outside the brain. Show me the data, I'd said, watching their enthusiasm deflate. Science doesn't run on feelings or faith. If only I'd known how those words would come back to haunt me. The experiment I was conducting that afternoon was routine, or at least it should have been. I was analyzing cellular responses to electrical stimulation, something I'd done hundreds of times before, but something felt different. Maybe it was the way the fluorescent lights seemed to flicker more than usual, or how the air felt charged with an energy I couldn't explain. I ignored these sensations, of course. Intuition had no place in scientific methodology. The first sign that something was wrong came when my chest tightened. I remember reaching for my coffee mug, watching it slip from my fingers in slow motion. As it shattered against the floor, a searing pain shot through my left arm. My knees buckled, and the cold laboratory floor rushed up to meet me. I tried to call for help, but my voice failed me. The last thing I saw was the ceiling tiles spinning above me as darkness crept in from the edges of my vision. What happened next defied everything I'd believed about consciousness and existence. The darkness that enveloped me wasn't the empty void I'd expected. Instead, it felt alive, pulsing with a presence I can only describe as aware. As a scientist, I'd always imagined death would be like switching off a computer, a simple cessation of electrical activity in the brain. But this was something entirely different. I felt myself floating, drawn upward by an invisible current. The weight of my body, the constant pull of gravity I'd studied my entire career, simply vanished. Below me, I could see my own form sprawled on the laboratory floor, while my colleagues rushed in, their voices muffled, as if traveling through water. I watched them start CPR, their movements precise but urgent. It was surreal, observing my own potential death with the detached curiosity of a researcher. But that was just the beginning. As I drifted further from my physical form, the laboratory walls dissolved into a luminous corridor that seemed to exist beyond space and time. And I wasn't alone. All around me I saw them, other souls in transition. Some glowed with a peaceful radiance, while others emanated a darkness that made my scientific mind recoil in horror. These souls, these conscious energies, they noticed me. One in particular approached, a brilliantly glowing presence that somehow communicated without words. "You've always sought truth," it seemed to say, "but you've been looking through the wrong lens." The irony wasn't lost on me here. I was a man who demanded physical proof for everything, experiencing something that defied all physical law. What this being showed me next would change not just my understanding of reality, but my comprehension of humanity's immediate future. And what I learned about 2025, well, that's why I need to share this story with you now. Because time, as it turns out, isn't the linear progression I'd always taught my students. It's more fluid, more consequential than any of us have imagined. The being of light guided me through what I can only describe as a vast ethereal chamber. Suddenly my life began playing out before me. Not like a movie, but as if I was simultaneously experiencing every moment again. I felt the joy of my first scientific discovery, the pride of earning my doctorate, but also the pain I'd caused others with my rigid skepticism. Every dismissive comment, Every time, ID shut down a student's curiosity about the unknown. It all carried a weight I'd never recognized before. But what truly shook me was when other souls began to gather around. They formed what I can only describe as a council, their energies pulsing with an urgency that transcended our earthly understanding of time. Some radiated with wisdom and peace, while others seemed to bear the burden of choices that had led to devastating consequences. I want you to understand something crucial here. These weren't just random spirits. Each one had recently transitioned from Earth, carrying with them the accumulated knowledge of their lives and a profound understanding of the connections between human choices and their spiritual consequences. What they showed me about our immediate future left me trembling. Even now, as I share this with you, I can feel my hands shaking. They communicated in waves of pure thought and emotion, showing me visions of 2025 that I wish I could unsee. But here is the thing. They weren't showing me a fixed future. Instead, they revealed how our current choices, yours, mine, everyone's, are weaving together to create what's coming. And let me tell you, if we don't change course soon, what's coming is nothing short of catastrophic. I saw massive cities plunged into darkness, their power grids failing under the strain of our unchecked consumption. It wasn't just a temporary blackout. I witnessed how this cascade of failures would begin in Europe around May 2025, spreading like a virus across interconnected systems. The souls showed me how this crisis stems directly from our collective choice to prioritize profit over sustainability, our refusal to heed the warnings that have been right in front of us. But it gets worse. Through their celestial wisdom, they revealed an impending economic collapse that's tied directly to our exploitation of the Earth's resources. I watched as natural disasters born from our environmental negligence triggered a chain reaction in global markets. The scenes they showed me of social unrest, of communities turning against each other as resources become scarce. It was like watching humanity's worst impulses amplified through a lens of desperation. What struck me most was how these souls emphasized the role of individual choice in all of this. Every soul in that council had contributed to this future in some way during their time on Earth, whether through action or inaction. Some glowed with the regret of opportunities missed, chances they'd had to speak up or make different choices that might have altered our collective trajectory. You see, in that realm, there's no hiding from the truth of our actions. Each choice we make creates ripples that extend far beyond our individual lives. I watched as decisions made in corporate boardrooms, in political offices, and even in our own homes wove together into a tapestry of consequences that would unfold in 2025. One soul in particular approached me. Its energy carried the weight of someone who had held significant power on Earth, but had chosen personal gain over collective well-being. The remorse emanating from this being was almost unbearable. Through our telepathic connection, they showed me how their choices had helped pave the way for the rise of new authoritarian leaders who would exploit the coming crises, using fear to consolidate power and deepen social divisions. The council made it clear, these coming events aren't random or inevitable. They're the direct result of a spiritual crisis in human consciousness. Our collective choice to ignore the deeper truths about our interconnectedness, our responsibility to each other, and to the planet that sustains us. But here's what gives me hope, and why I'm sharing this with you now. They also showed me that it's not too late to change course. This is where I need you to really pay attention, because what the council revealed next was both terrifying and enlightening. They showed me how the choices we make in the next few months will either amplify or mitigate the chaos coming in 2025. I saw glimpses of two possible futures unfolding simultaneously, one of darkness and one of hope. In the darker timeline, I witnessed how our current trajectory leads to a perfect storm of crises. By March 2025, the first major signs will become impossible to ignore. I saw massive power outages sweeping across European cities, starting in the industrial centers and spreading outward. But these aren't just technical failures. They're the physical manifestation of our spiritual disconnection from the energy that sustains all life. The souls showed me how these blackouts trigger a domino effect. Picture this. As cities go dark, the digital infrastructure we've become so dependent on begins to crumble. Banking systems fail, supply chains break down, and panic spreads like wildfire. By May 2025, what started as an energy crisis transforms into a full-blown economic collapse. I watched as markets plummeted, not just numbers on a screen, but real people losing everything they'd worked for. But here's what the souls emphasized most strongly. These events are just symptoms of a deeper spiritual crisis. They showed me how our collective consciousness has become fragmented, divided by artificial boundaries of ideology and fear. I saw the rise of charismatic leaders who exploit this division, promising security, but delivering control. Their words sound convincing on the surface, but in the spiritual realm, I could see the darkness that fuels their promises. One of the souls, a being who had recently transitioned from a position of global influence, shared a particularly chilling insight. They showed me how social media and advanced AI technologies would be weaponized during this period, creating such convincing illusions of reality that even the most discerning minds would struggle to separate truth from manipulation. The resulting confusion and fear would create the perfect conditions for authoritarian control. But then, in a moment that still brings tears to my eyes, they showed me the alternative path. It was like watching a split screen of human potential. In this brighter timeline, I saw communities coming together instead of falling apart. I witnessed how small groups of awakened individuals could create ripples of positive change, starting with their own neighborhoods and expanding out. The council made it clear. The key to averting the darker timeline lies in our individual and collective choices right now. They showed me how each person who awakens to this reality becomes a point of light in the spiritual realm, creating a network of consciousness that can literally alter the course of future events. I know what some of you might be thinking. I certainly would have been skeptical of all this before my experience. But let me share something even more personal. During my time in that realm, I was shown specific decisions I'd made in my own life that had contributed to the coming crisis. As a scientist, I had dismissed and even ridiculed ideas that didn't fit into my materialistic worldview. I had unknowingly helped create an academic environment where spiritual wisdom was seen as inferior to technological progress. The souls showed me how this dismissal of spiritual reality has led humanity to develop technologies without wisdom, to pursue progress without purpose, and to build economies that destroy the very systems that sustain us. But they also showed me something remarkable: how the same technological networks we've created could be used to spread awakening instead of fear, to connect rather than divide. What I witnessed next was perhaps the most profound part of my experience. The council brought forward souls who had just transitioned from various parts of our world. Scientists, teachers, leaders, ordinary people who had lived with extraordinary awareness. Each one shared their perspective on the coming changes, creating a tapestry of wisdom that transcended any single cultural or religious viewpoint. They showed me how the environmental disasters we're facing, the floods, fires, and storms that will intensify through 2025, are Earth's physical response to our spiritual disconnection. But these events, as devastating as they may be, also create opportunities for humanity to remember its true nature. In the moments of crisis, when the usual distractions fall away, people have the chance to rediscover their innate connection to each other and to the planet. I'm still not entirely sure how long I was in that realm. Time doesn't flow there the way it does here, but I'll never forget the moment I was told I had to return. The Council of Souls gathered around me one last time, their energy focused with an intensity that made their earlier communications seem dim in comparison. They shared one final crucial message, a message I now understand was meant not just for me, but for all of you. They showed me how the next year becomes a turning point for humanity. Each individual awakening creates a ripple in the collective consciousness. These ripples, they showed me, can either reinforce the patterns leading to collapse, or they can help create a new pattern of cooperation and spiritual awareness. The choice, and this is critical for you to understand, lies with each of us. When I gasped back to life on that laboratory floor, my colleagues were stunned. The defibrillator readings showed I'd been clinically dead for 7 minutes. According to one of the emergency responders, they were about to call time of death when my heart suddenly started beating again. But the man who returned to life that day was not the same skeptical scientist who had collapsed. The first few weeks after my experience were challenging, to say the least. How does a man of science integrate something so far beyond the boundaries of conventional understanding? I found myself walking through my daily routines like a stranger in my own life. Teaching became particularly difficult. How could I stand in front of my students and pretend that the material world was all there was? But gradually, I began to understand why I was sent back. The souls in that realm made it clear. Those of us who have glimpsed these truths have a responsibility to share them, not to convince or convert, but to offer a perspective that might help others make more conscious choices as we approach this crucial period. Let me be clear about something. I'm not suggesting we should panic or give in to fear about what's coming. In fact, the souls showed me that fear and panic only accelerate the darker timeline. Instead, they emphasized the importance of making conscious choices from a place of awareness and connection. What does this mean in practical terms? It starts with simple but profound shifts in how we live our daily lives. When we make decisions, whether they're about our energy use, our food choices, our relationships, or our work, we need to consider their spiritual impact, not just their material consequences. The souls showed me how these seemingly small choices create the foundation for larger systemic changes. For those of you watching who might be skeptical, believe me, I understand. A year ago, I would have dismissed this entire story as an hallucination, a trick of a dying brain. But I've come to understand that true skepticism means being willing to question not just other people's beliefs, but our own assumptions about reality. I'm sharing this now because we're running out of time. The souls made it absolutely clear that the window for changing our collective trajectory starts closing rapidly as we move deeper into 2025. But, and this is crucial, they also showed me that it only takes a relatively small percentage of humanity awakening to these truths to begin shifting the timeline toward a more positive outcome. This is where you come in. Each person watching this right now has the potential to become what the souls called a node of awakening in the collective consciousness. Your choices, your awareness, your willingness to consider perspectives beyond the material. These create ripples that affect far more than just your individual life. I've spent the months since my experience documenting everything I saw, cross-referencing it with current events and patterns, and connecting with others who've had similar insights. What I've found has only confirmed the urgency of the Council's message. The signs they showed me are already beginning to manifest, so I'm asking you, no, I'm pleading with you, to take this seriously. Reflect on your own life, your choices, your impact on the world around you. Share this message if it resonates with you. Connect with others who are awakening to these deeper truths, because what I learned in that realm beyond death is that we're not just passive observers of what's coming. We're active participants in choosing which future will manifest. Remember, the souls showed me both timelines. The darkness I witnessed is inevitable. Every choice we make from this moment forward helps determine which path humanity will take. We have the power to choose wisdom over ignorance, connection over division, and conscious awareness over blind progress. The question isn't whether change is coming, it's what role each of us will play in shaping that change. The future is in our hands, but we don't have much time left to choose our path. What will you choose?